Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're going to be playing the new +1 seasonal event, which means that whenever we play a unit, we spawn a 1-power copy of that unit in the same row. Now, there are some absolutely insane combos for this seasonal event. This is even the seasonal event that the developers had to end 3 weeks early the last time it was around because it was just so broken. You know what that means. We're playing the deck that changed everything. So today we'll be using a Guerilla Tactics Scoia'Tael deck, which means that we can move one of our units 3 times. And that is key because the point of this deck is to abuse Yrden of Ulivo's ability to spawn in an additional unit whenever we spawn in a unit. Because every time we play a unit, we spawn an additional copy in this seasonal event, that means that Yrden will create an infinite loop, filling an entire row with copies of himself. Then with all of those Ydrens, we can create a bunch of copies of whatever other cards we want to have. So this is the card that single-handedly caused the developers to redefine the schedule for all seasonal events going forward. One thing we need to bear in mind, though, is because Yrden will fill an entire row with himself, that means there's no room to spawn in additional copies of units in that row because it's already full. That's why we're using Guerilla Tactics, and that's why we're going to need cards like Malena as well to give ourselves a little bit more movement, so we still have the space to spawn in other cards that we want to have all those copies of. And our top priority for doing that is Snowdrop, because although she starts off as just a 2-power card, whenever we use her order ability, she will boost herself and every copy of herself by 4. So if we have a ton of copies of Snowdrop, that means that every single copy of her is going to get huge, and it only takes 2 or 3 turns to set it all up. So that's the focus of the deck, is to pull off that combo, and then also to use cards like Renew to get one of them back from our graveyard, and Decoy to put one of them back in our deck. And once we've done that, we can use the same combo in 2 separate rounds. Other than that, we have what is more or less your typical Scoia'Tael movement deck, which is basically our plan B in case, for whatever reason, we can't pull off that full combo. So we'll flip through the deck here to show you what we have, but that is the overarching idea, and so there are certainly other cards that we could create additional copies of if, say, we don't create those copies of Snowdrop. Gezras being one of them, Ciri being another, Idarran, of course, being one of the focal points, along with Snowdrop, Malena also being key, and then Dol Blathanna Sentries and even Dryad Matrons, really anybody who can do the movement. Also, not a terrible option as a plan C or plan D even, if things get disrupted. So there's a look at the deck, and overall, if we pull off this combo, it is game-breakingly strong. And if we can do it twice, then there is almost no stopping us. So let's go try it out. Okay, so go against monsters here, and they'll go first. And we have Decoy, we want that for round 1. Malena is important for round 2, but no Yrden and no Snowdrop is a bit unfortunate, so let's change that. Got Royal Decree that can give us one of them. Then if we dump a Mentor, we get Oneiromancy, which can give us the other. So that's huge. Oh, okay. Strikebore is interesting. Didn't see that one coming. So what we do here is we Royal Decree into Yrden, and he will immediately fill one of these rows with all of his spawned copies. But this doesn't do us much good as it currently sits, because that means there's no room to spawn in additional copies of our next units. So we use our leader ability here, move some of these Yrens around, and now we actually have space to spawn in new things. And Indriga Larva has Thrive. Here is... Oh, well, actually, I mean, you gave us the unit we were looking for. We got Snowdrop, and actually, that's very fortunate this was the first card that we got, because if it was the second one, it would have gotten destroyed, as you saw there. So this will spawn in a bazillion Snowdrops, and we need to be quick here. This will take a lot of time to actually use all these Snowdrop abilities. That's what we're looking to do. Oh, that will actually destroy the second card in our hand because we had that Strigabore give us additional cards. So this is actually a bit of a counter to what we have set up right now. So let's move you out, and let's move you out. And I think we may actually deliberately not use any more Snowdrops on this turn, as long as they don't remove our Snowdrops here, which it doesn't look like they're going to. So that means we need to be fast here. We're going to now use Snowdrop. And now just dump these guys. So we want to activate, ideally, all of these. And we need Renew for the next round, which we can get with Oneiromancy. But if we could draw into it as well, that would also be quite nice. And we're going to actually play Decoy on our turns. We, of course, need to make sure that we give ourselves time to do that. And given how long this can take to do all these rounds of Snowdrops, that is perhaps easier said than done. And when we do use said Decoy, we need to use it on one of the Idarrans that does not have Doomed, because otherwise that Idarran will disappear. Because Doomed units just go away whenever you remove them from the battlefield. Think we're going to have enough time? Let's do Decoy just in case. Where'd you go, Decoy? Okay, and sure, we'll get you. Not really going to have room to do anything with that, but that's fine. And then, time for the last Snowdrop here. Okay. We've gotten 276 points in 3 turns here. And then, we put Idarran back in our deck, and we're going to use Renew to get Snowdrop back so we can play this same combo again. Or Thrive. But that's not nearly quick enough to keep pace with this, so we actually pass here and dare our opponent to find a way to catch up to us, which they do not even try to do. Okay, so we drew into the Dragoon, Idarran, and Gezras. And drawing to Idarran is big because that means that we can use Oneiromancy to get Renew. Otherwise, we would have been potentially 1 card short of the combo. See if we can mulligan into Renew as well. That's not strictly necessary per se, but maybe we get rid of a Dragoon and just see. And we do, in fact, get Renew. So, sure, I think we stick with this in that case. And in this situation, what we want to do is we actually want to lead off with Malena, because she is going to be our source of movement now that we have already used all of our leader ability charges. So again, otherwise, Idarran is just going to completely clog one of the rows. Okay, and they're going with Thrive. And again, that's fine, because we just need to make sure that they don't do anything to mess up our setup here. So now we go Idarran. And he will fill up this row, but because we have the Malenas out there, means that we can move some of these guys. And that way we aren't completely clogged anymore. Okay, more Thrive. So now we move more Idarrans to just even them out between these 2 rows, and now we go Renew to get ourselves those Snowdrops back. And it's going to be the same idea here, of course. And they just forfeit. Okay, so going against monsters here. And we'll go first. And we have Idarran. That's big. We have Oneiromancy, which we can use in order to get Snowdrop. Same story with Royal Decree. We have Decoy, that's also huge, so that's all the cards we want for round 1. Then Renew is going to be big in round 2, so I think we have just about exactly what we're looking for here. Maybe we just dump Swordmaster, and maybe Catwitcher Mentor as well, and Vrihedd Dragoon as well. Sure, okay, why not? Okay, so it's Idarran first. And he will, of course, fill up the entire row, as you see in here. And then we use our leader ability to move him at least 3 times to split him a bit between the 2 different rows. Then next step is to get Snowdrop. And the fact that they're using Overwhelming Hunger is perhaps an indication that they might even be looking to do something similar here. Going with Haunt, okay. So now we use Oneiromancy. Get Snowdrop out here, and we need to be quick here because this takes a long time. Okay, so use this. And sure, we'll keep Ciri, but other than that, we mostly just need to be clicking these buttons as quickly as possible. That means, ideally, we're just keeping the 2, or switching the 2 cards on the rightmost side, although I'd like Gezras as well. I'm getting a little pickier here than I really should be getting, and spending the time to think about what we're drawing into. Malena is actually key. We should make sure that we keep her. Keep on getting the cards that we would like to have in the rightmost side, so I'm thinking, maybe we don't swap those out, but may mean that we're going to fall 1 Snowdrop short here. Not the end of the world, because we will actually play 1 more card on this turn. And will we have time? We will. Turn has technically ended, so it will not allow me to choose which cards we swap out here. But they immediately pass, seeing what we have here. Now, of course, we've only played 2 cards, so in theory, we can play 1 more here and still draw back up to 10 cards in round 2. And I think that is important because we want to use Decoy on one of our Idarrans that does not have Doom. So remember, if it has Doomed, it will get destroyed immediately upon leaving the battlefield. So we use this on you. We will get a random unit out there. What? Idarran just decoyed into Idarran? That's possible? I did not know that was possible. I would have thought it was not possible. Okay, that does complicate matters quite a bit, actually. Would have liked to have used Renew in the next round on Snowdrop, and then played Idarran from our deck using Royal Decree. So, that does mess with the strategy considerably, actually. But now we'll pass and take round 1. And I think Renew is actually one of the cards that got dropped when we were using that last Snowdrop and we couldn't pick which cards to put back into our deck because we drew into it here. Got Oneiromancy round 2, that's big. But just to clarify what the probability of getting that other Idarran with our Decoy was, we had 1 unit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and Idarran 14. There's a 1 in 14 chance of that happening. But it happened nonetheless. So what we want to do here is we want to lead off with actually Malena, because we used all of our leader ability charges in round 1. We're going to need her to move some of those Idarrans around. And Rotfiend, of course, can deal some damage, and it's not a terrible thing if they start doing this well. Ideally, you know, they wait until after we've already played Idarran, because we do need those Malenas. I was going to say, we're going to have more Idarrans than we know what to do with in just a minute, although now things get complicated. Because with no way to move Idarran, that means that he's just clogging 1 row and not really doing much else, so he's not really helping us in that situation. So I think that fundamentally changes what we're looking to do here. I think instead we opt to go the Dol Blathanna Sentries and we just go pure movement. And Mata will give us our weakest card and their strongest card. In our case, that's the Vrihedd Dragoon. Now let's get some Dryad Matrons out there just to get this guy boosted up a little bit more. Actually, since we spawned in the other one, they're only going to boost themselves. But we're going to want to get our other round of Dol Blathanna Sentries out there soon as well. And then get the Cat Witchers out there too. Okay, Rotfiend. They've used their leader ability, so they don't have an immediate way of destroying those to deal the damage. Let's go with you now. And this range row is going to get pretty crowded here, but that is, of course, the row in which Gezras does all of his boosting. That's not a bad thing, just as long as there is still enough space to do that movement. Okay, Barghest for some consumption. This is presumably going to be on those Rot Fiends to deal some damage, and it was getting pretty crowded. We had a nice setup there, but if you do destroy something, it's not the end of the world, except you didn't. Okay, so now let's go Royal Decree into some of those Cat Witchers. And I think we actually go melee row first, and I'd like to get rid of that Barghest if we can. And we did not, unfortunately. But here's all the movement taking effect, and this is where all those Dol Blathanna Sentries become huge. Okay, they're going to destroy one of our Matrons. That was our biggest unit. And it was, of course, a source of our movement. But in doing so, it does free up a little bit more room in our range row. And what I'd like to do here is we're going to get a little bit clever. We're going to go Oneiromancy. And we're going to use that to get a bunch of Ciri dashes out here. And I kind of need to put them in the melee row, because otherwise they're going to take up space for things like Gezras that we want to have in the range row. Pressure is now on them to do something about these, and we did get rid of that Rotfiend. I was trying to wait until after that got destroyed, because there was the chance that 4 damage would have gotten rid of one of these. But if they don't respond, then we are, of course, going to draw 2 additional cards, which is pretty big. Okay, well, they're going to destroy the lowest enemy unit, assuming they do have that consumption, although we actually have dominance here. So they cannot use this consumability on this Barghest, so at least as of right now, it does not work. And if we wanted to, we actually do have a way of boosting this Ciri dash back up so that it will not be the lowest unit on the playing field for us, and we would lose Dol Blathanna Sentry instead. Is that something that we'd like to do? I think maybe it is, actually. So what we do is we go Renew, and we go Malena. And with Malena, we just move you a little bit. And in doing so, all those Dol Blathanna Sentries will boost this Ciri, making her much bigger, and now, if they are to use this Death Wish ability, they will destroy either Malena or one of those Dol Blathanna Sentries. Cover to one of the Bargus, and actually, they just forfeit. Okay, so go against Scoia'Tael here, and they'll go first, and I wonder if this is going to be a mirror match. Okay, we got Yrden, but we don't have Snowdrop, so let's swap out the Dragoon. We get Renew, which is useful for round 2, and Decoy, which is useful for round 1, but only if we actually get Snowdrop, which we do not have here. They're using Dandelion, which is not necessarily a sign they're using the same deck, although it's possible this is just a way for them to get additional cards in their hand to maybe fix a hand, kind of like what we have. And so with no Snowdrop in our hand, that means that our strategy for this round changes dramatically. That means we're not going for Idarran at all. It means instead we're probably going for more of a Scoia'Tael movement approach. And before we start going all out on that, I wonder if maybe even it's worth using Morenn first to lock one of these Dryad Matrons. Let's go for that. Shut them down a little bit before we start setting ourselves up. Oh, Yennefer Conjurer. Okay, now this looks very different from what we have going on. I think we take it a little bit easy here, play some of our smaller bronze units in preparation for a bigger round 2 and round 3. If we lose round 1, not terrible, because of course we don't have our biggest combo here. So I think we go with the Miner, and we use that Order ability to help make sure that our units are not on the same power, because that's what they want here with their Yennefer Conjurers, is to get numerous units on the same power, and that way they can damage everyone simultaneously. And they're going Ciri Dash. That was the thing that I was, well, planning on doing next. However, by playing Ciri Dash next, we are making it harder for us to remove these Ciris, because if we were to, say, play an Elven Swordmaster, or get some of the Cat Witchers out there, that damage is not 100% controllable, at least not in the case of the Cat Witcher, but that could be nice to at least ensure that we get rid of one of these. So I think let's start off with the Elven Swordmasters. And let's boost the highest one, in order to make it a little bit tougher for those Yennefer Conjurers to deal damage to multiple units. Oh, except they're going to lock one of these and deal damage to it. That means we don't get to damage, and it does make it sooner before they can damage multiple units with those Yennefer Conjurers. So now what we do is we go with the Cat Witchers, putting them here, and of course they will damage a random unit in this melee row, and so we don't know if it's going to be Ciri Dash, but we'd love for it to be this one that we will now weaken here. We could also use some leader ability charges to get rid of one, possibly even 2 of them, which is potentially worth doing. But we do very much want that leader ability for our Idarran plus Snowdrop combo, so I think we try to get by without that. And we did not hit Ciri, unfortunately. What are they going to go with here? Probably damaged 4 enemy units? Yeah. Oh, and look at that. Now they've set up their Conjurers. And this round 1 is, of course, not looking great for us right now. We were playing some of our weakest cards and then didn't get lucky on our damage. We could play our Ciri Dash, but at this stage, I feel like this round is probably going to end before we get the chance for this trigger. So I think what we do is we actually pass early here, and we plan to go for a relatively long round 2, in which we may very likely play our Ciri Dashes. And that means they will get the chance to draw those 2 cards. But we did it early enough in the round that they only have a 1-card advantage rather than a 2-card advantage. So that was another reason why we wanted to pass a little bit earlier. And, well, no Snowdrop to be found. So let's get rid of the Dragoon. Still no Snowdrop. Get rid of the Miner. Royal Decree, which can give us Snowdrop. Okay, so now we're talking. We'll go Hawker Smuggler. Give them some hand boosting, but that's not going to be enough to keep pace with this combo we're about to pull off here. So we go Idarran. He, of course, fills up this row here, and so we're going to want to move some of these Idarrans. The other row. Spread them out. one moment. Duty calls. Please hold. Alright, and I had to tab out for a second there because work message came up, but we have Cat Witcher that they just played, and dealt some damage to remove some of those Idarrans. It's actually not a terrible thing, because we actually had more Idarrans than we needed on this occasion. But what we do now is we go Royal Decree into Snowdrop, and I will immediately activate these order abilities. So I was a little slow to trigger this, which means it is going to be very tough for us to have enough time to activate all of these in this round. But that's okay, we are likely to play one more card here. So I want to keep the Malena. She's going to be important for the next round. And this is potentially dangerous here. We want to make sure we get the chance to dump those two cards we just drew, because we liked our other ones. So what do we have? Still have Renew, which is important. We still have Oneiromancy, which is important. But we did lose Malena, which is unfortunate because that is one of the cards we wanted to keep for our next round. So what we do here is let's activate the rest of our Snowdrops, and then we're going to decoy out of this Idarran here. And the game will ask us if we're overcommitting, and don't worry. Yes, we are playing an additional card that we don't necessarily need to play. This is true. However, it is very important that we get the chance to get Idarran back in our deck, and we have 7 cards here, so like we're going to draw back up to 10 anyway. I suppose we're going to play one more and technically be at 9, but dump you guys. And mostly, we just want to make sure, I mean, the points don't really matter much at this stage because we have already won this round, but we need to decoy you. And then ideally, we would have time to get rid of this Dryad Dragoon. Is really just the only card I particularly want to drop. And I didn't have time to select the last one before our turn ended, but I think I like what I see in our hand here. So we'll take the round 2 victory here. We are a card down here, but that's absolutely a price that I'm willing to pay if that means we get to play our combo again. Because we drew back into Idarran here, that's why we wanted the decoy. And then we can dump the Miner and probably the Dragoon as well. And we'll get another one. But what we do here is we go Oneiromancy into Malena. And we would very much like for both of these Malenas to stick around. Except they're going to destroy one of them. Okay, so this is tough. Oh, and they use their lead ability to get rid of the other. Well done. Okay, so the plan was going to be to then play Idarran and use those Malenas to move those Idarran so that they don't completely clog one of our rows. So that means our Idarran plus Snowdrop combo no longer works. However, we could theoretically renew into Malena, get a bunch of Idarrans, and just not clog one of our rows that way. We would need to create copies of a different card. In that case, it would likely be something like Gezras. And that's going to take up a lot of space still, but I think we give it a shot here. Let's get Malena down. And we'll see if they have any more sources of damage. They're out of their leader ability at this point. Okay, well, they can play another round of that special card. Would presumably mean they're going to get rid of our bigger Malena here. That they will. Okay, so this move could get us in a little bit of trouble, so I wouldn't necessarily advise that you do this, but in the name of science, I'm going to deliberately spawn in all of our Idarrans. The reason why this is potentially not a great idea is because we don't have a great way to move these guys around. We can move one with Malena, but that's it. And that means, even with all this spawning, we're still only going to be able to spawn one additional copy in this row, because there just isn't enough room. They locking Malena? She's smart. Yeah, that's well played. I mean, they could have also just destroyed her. But I think what we do now is we actually go with Ciri Dash. Because this will give us a bunch of copies of her. And that means that if they don't do something about this, in 3 turns, we are going to draw 4 extra cards. In which case, you can say goodbye to our card disadvantage. But they're taking a gamble here with Uma's Curse. And with it, ooh, they got so unbelievably lucky, and they know it. That Bloodthirst 3 is active, which means they can, in fact, immediately destroy 3 of those series. And next turn, they'll have more damage to go along with that. Okay, and so any unit that we create here is going to completely jam our ranged row, and that's not really something we want to have happen. So I think we deliberately play Gezras here, otherwise we're at risk of him not having any room. So he still won't have quite as much movement ability. But better to play him now, and yes, I was hoping we'd have the chance to at least destroy that Udalric. And 4 Gezras is a little too much for them, so they forfeit. So there's a look at a ridiculously strong Scoia'Tael deck for the new +1 seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.